When this series began, you probably thought it was about visibility, about social media, about content, or showing up online. And in some ways, it is. But if you've watched all the way through, you've probably realized that visibility was never really the subject. And visibility was simply the doorway. What started as a conversation about social media became a conversation about something much deeper. It became about self-trust, expression, creativity, capacity, and ultimately participation. Participation in your work, participation in your life, because visibility was never the destination. It was just the bridge. It's the bridge between the work you carry inside you and the people it's here to serve. The bridge between who you have been and who you're becoming. And perhaps the biggest thing you've explored through this series is that meaningful growth doesn't happen by becoming somebody else. It happens by allowing more of yourself to be expressed. Because when you reconnect with what makes you come alive, when you find the thread connecting your experiences, your passion, your gift, when you stop trying to fit into somebody else's mold and you start allowing yourself to be seen as you actually are, things begin to shift. The right opportunities appear, the right people start to find you, the right conversations begin to happen. And it's not because you've become better at performing, but it's because people can finally feel who you are. And if I haven't made it clear enough throughout the series, money often is a byproduct of that process. It's not the goal, it's not the starting point, or at least it shouldn't be, but it's a natural result of bringing together what you love, what comes naturally to you, and the lessons that life have taught you and that you have actually overcome. People are rarely looking for perfect people. They're looking for somebody who can guide them through a path that you have already walked. At the beginning of this series, you may have also believed that the biggest challenge was consistency or confidence or not knowing what to post. And maybe you thought you simply weren't built for this. But across these episodes, something else has emerged. You've seen that the freeze is not a character flaw, it's protection. That confidence is not the goal, capacity is. That what makes you different is not something to hide or simplify, but it's part of a thread to find and mold into your unique way of doing things. That expression grows from connection and not that discipline. That being seen is not about attention, it's about accessibility, about people finding you. And that receiving what you want requires the ability to hold it beyond just attracting it. And all of that follows a very natural progression. First, you regulate, and actually, first you regulate, but regulate is something that you do throughout. You stop fighting yourself. You understand what is actually happening beneath the hesitation and the freeze. Then you activate, you reconnect with your voice, your perspective, your desires, your creativity, and the parts of yourself that have been waiting for permission to be expressed. And finally, you alchemize, you expand your ability to hold more visibility, more opportunities, more client, more impact, more freedom. And it's not through force and it's not through becoming somebody else, but it's through becoming more fully expressed. Regulate, activate, alchemize. That is the journey. And if there's one practical thing I hope you take away from this series, it is the people I see creating the most meaningful work are rarely following somebody else's blueprint. Instead, these are the three things that they pull from to create something that works and that is sustainable for them. It's taking your passion or passions, the thing that naturally lights you up and makes you come alive, your strength, the thing that comes easy to you. You might not value it as much because it's easy for you, but I guarantee you there's somebody out there that's finding it hard and that needs help with it. The challenges that you have personally navigated and overcome, the lessons you've lived rather than just studied. And somewhere in the overlap of those three things, something very unique starts to emerge, a way of helping people that could only come from your particular life, a perspective that can only come from your experience, and a body of work that feels deeply true to you because it is. And when people can feel that authenticity, they respond to it. The real kind, not the forced kind. Not because you've become better at marketing, but because you're showing yourself as unapologetically yourself. And I don't say that as theory. I say it because I've watched it happen again and again with people who arrived exactly where you might be right now. I had a client come to me recently who'd done years of serious inner work, real deep work, but she was still holding back. We were working together on the visibility piece, the showing up, the expressing herself online. And during a subconscious reprogramming session, something completely unexpected resurfaced. And it was a wound from childhood. And she realized she'd spent her life trying to be acceptable, not too loud, not too opinionated, just being the nice little girl who stayed small enough to be loved. And that pattern formed so early, and she was still carrying it all this time. It had been running in her relationships, in with people, but also with business, with money. And she was finally allowing herself to cry because something that had been lodged for decades was finally starting to move. And this was something that all the other work had been circling around but never reached. So she came in thinking it was about social media, and it turned out to be something much, much deeper that she'd been carrying her whole life. And once that shifted, once that belief that her voice didn't matter finally began to release, she could finally express herself. And this, yes, it helps with the business part, but it seeps into every area of life. And then I had a client who came in with no online presence at all, no account, no nothing. She had a retreat she wanted to run and thought she could do it in 3 months. It didn't happen in 3 months. It took 6 months. But she built her account from nothing, grew past 1,000 followers, created her offer, had her retreat, and it worked. And she's been showing up consistently ever since. And it's not because she's forcing herself, but it's because she built the capacity to hold it. And they both came to me because they wanted more followers, but they left as the person who stopped holding themselves back. So there's one final thing I want to talk about, because by now I don't think the question is whether you're capable or whether your work is valuable. I don't even think the question is whether you have something meaningful to offer. If you've watched this far, you probably already know the answer to those things. The question is, how much longer are you willing to wait? Because most people don't consciously choose stagnation. They postpone, maybe later, maybe when I have more confidence, maybe when I have more time, maybe when I'm not as busy, maybe next month. And then years pass, and it's not because they weren't capable or because their dreams disappeared, but it's because they were waiting, and they were waiting to feel ready, to feel certain, to be a version of themselves that never actually arrived. And I know this because I've done it too. I've postponed things that mattered deeply to me. And it's not because I didn't want them, but it's because I thought that certainty would come first, or that I would have the confidence first. And the truth is, certainty rarely comes first. Life asks us to participate before we fully feel ready, and not by recklessly forcing ourselves, but by taking the next step from where we are now. Because eventually there comes a point where the cost of waiting becomes greater than the discomfort of moving. And that is why I no longer see the opposite of success as failure. I see it as stagnation. We all need rest, winter, integration. Those parts are all part of creation. Nature doesn't operate in constant growth. There are seasons where something is being expressed and seasons where something is being integrated, and some seasons where there are things being birthed and created. All of it belongs, all of it is creation. Stagnation is different. Stagnation is knowing something wants to be expressed and continually postponing it. It is knowing something wants to be created and continuously delaying it. It's waiting for the perfect moment and the moment never arrives. Creation is a participation, a connection. It's saying yes to the next step. And perhaps one of the biggest shifts of all of this is you stop trying to be liked by everyone, because when you're trying to be liked by everyone and not rock the boat for anyone, you become the irresistible choice to no one. The work was never to become more acceptable. The work was never to become more polished or somebody else. It was always to become more fully expressed and more fully you. And this is so important for allowing the people who resonate with your perspective, your experiences, and your exact way of helping to actually find you. And when you stop trying to fit yourself into someone else's mold, you begin creating from who you are rather than from who you think you should be. And it's not because you know exactly where it will lead, but it's because something inside you knows it's time. And every person watching this now stands at that choice. It's creation or stagnation, participation or postponement, expression or continued waiting. Recognition is not the same as change. Understanding is not the same as implementation. Seeing the pattern is just the beginning, it's not the end. And if you've recognized yourself throughout this series, the question becomes, what are you going to do with what you recognized? Some people will take what they've learned and implement it on their own, and that is wonderful. Others will realize that what they need is not more information, it's support, it's structure, it's guidance, and someone actually there with them. Because the truth is, there's no single visibility strategy that works for everyone. There are so many people teaching strategy that follow a definite structure, and many work for some people. The problem is not that the strategies are wrong. The problem is that they're often taught as though people are all the same, as though everyone has the same nervous system, the same strength, the same communication style, the same capacity, the same business model, and even the same energetic blueprint. And they don't. What works brilliantly for one person can completely exhaust the other. And what feels natural and sustainable for one person can feel so performative and draining for someone else. And that's why I don't believe in forcing people into a formula. The work is discovering how visibility works for you, your voice, your strength, your way of communicating, your way of what makes you feel alive. Sustainable visibility is not built by becoming somebody else. It's built by creating a business and a way of showing up that actually feels aligned for where you are at right now. And that's exactly why I created the Visibility Lab. This is not a program built on information, although there's a lot of information. It's built on implementation. We work with the nervous system, with the subconscious patterns. We also work on your messaging and your content. And we work on your capacity to hold what you're building. And we do all of it together in real time with real feedback. So nothing gets lost or falls through the cracks. So if you've made it this far and you feel the pull towards the next step, I want to invite you to continue the journey. You can read through the offer, which is in the description below, see what's possible, if it feels aligned, and submit an application. The goal was never to become someone else. The goal was always becoming more fully expressed, more fully alive, more fully yourself, because the people who need your work can't find the version of you that stays hidden, and life cannot meet the parts of you that never participated. I'll see you on the other side.